Welcome back. It's still Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We are now being joined by Mr. Ade Adefeko. He is the Director of Corporate and Regulatory Affairs at Olema Greek, and he did share his perspective to share the issue with food insecurity in Nigeria is availability and not affordability. Mr. Adefeko, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So your latest views on this issue of insecurity, is it availability? Is it affordability? Could you help us understand?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to hear you.
So you did say that the issue of food insecurity in Nigeria is availability, not affordability. Help us to understand your perspective.
Let me state something. We have an availability crisis and an affordability crisis. As we speak, in the last couple of months, we have been struggling to produce enough food to feed ourselves or to make ourselves food secure. And where we have done so, we have not been able, or the masses have not been able to afford same due to food inflation, amongst other things. So we have a food affordability problem and a food availability problem. But in the next couple of months, we will have a bit of what we call harvest across value chains. And then from there, we should be able to a large extent, be, I will say, partially food secure. There's a nexus between food security and national security. And it's important for us to dimension that and look at it further. I will go probably further into granular when we move more into the program.
Well, when you say in the next couple of months, I mean, this is the period where there's higher demand. We had harvest some months ago. We did see, inflation drop based on the harvest that we had earlier in the year. So when you say next couple of months, we're going to see partial food security, where would that be coming from?
Thank you very much for that. Let me give you a brief landscape, a brief introduction to the landscape. Nigeria produces about 60 million metric tons of cassava. We produce about 50 million tons of yam, 12 million tons of maize, and about 7 million tons of sorghum, among other staples. So production to a large extent is equal to consumption. So we might say, well, okay, we're self-sufficient in this staples. Okay, even though I spoke earlier about availability. But what happens right now is that we have an issue of cyclical production. Our production is not all year round, and that's where you have the gaps. So you have dry season farming, wet season farming. You don't have all year round farming, and that's where the challenge is. So let me give you a quick insight. A major staple in Nigeria that people speak to regularly is rice. We consume approximately 7.8 million tons of rice, but we grow only around about 5 million. So paddy production in Nigeria is approximately 8 million tons. That's roughly converting to about 4.8 million tons of milled rice. That's finished rice. The majority of this is consumed in rural areas as subsistence consumption. So the remaining 2.5 to 3 million tons are imported into the country illegally through land border. So that's the challenge we have most of the time. A lot of rice, particularly, is brought into the country illegally. So, and of course, that is where we have our issues. So I can go on and on, but let me stop there.
Well, we obviously know that apart from the wet and the dry season farming, the issue of mechanized farming could also help. We hear a lot of state government talk about this, but I wonder how effective this has been from your perspective.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear you. But,
the issue of mechanized farming, I was talking about mechanized farming coming to help and breach the gap of this need of food supply.
See, let me contextualize once again. Mechanized farming is not farming for everyone. the likes of the Olams of this world, the flour mills of this world, the workers of this world, the boers of this world, the big players, yes, have farmers in their fold. Olam, for example, has 35,000 farmers in its fold, art growers. We do mechanized farming, particularly in the area of rice. Our rice farm in Nasarawa, for example, is 10,500 hectares, of which we have cultivated 4,500. But that 4,500 we cultivated is mechanized because we have the wherewithal, we have the heft to do it. But the small scale farmer doesn't have that heft. He's organized in cooperatives. And the farmer, farmer mechanized input ratio is very low. It's among the lowest in the world. I was reading some time ago, maybe 3-4 months ago, where the federal government was speaking to the fact that they were going to import tractors and all that. So tractors, plowers, and all that. For me, government has no business in business. So I don't see any reason why the Ministry of Agriculture should concern itself with buying, with getting mechanization for farmers. Let the farmers organize themselves into cooperatives. Let the big ones like the Olams of this world, the workers of this world, the big major players in the organized private sector, support them by helping them with inputs on the one hand, plowers and the likes. Let us have them in our fold. Then we can boost food production. And I think that's the way forward. All this buying tractors from X country or Y country, I think it's a bit of a time waster. And government should not be seen to be doing that. Government should involve the organized private sector in helping to address food security. Food security, like I said in my intro, is an integral part of national security, which is why you see on a recurring basis, Nigeria's National Security Advisor always at meetings where food security is being discussed. He understands the nexus between both. And I think we should take that very seriously.
Well, while we appreciate the place of big players like Olam, which you represent, what do we now do to the smaller farmers? I've had some women who formed cooperative, they're into farming and different rural parts. What do we do with them to make them effective? Because they can also contribute to food security in the country.
I like that very much. You seem to sequence your questions so well that one would think that I had your questions beforehand. And I know that you are for gender inclusion and inclusivity, but I agree with you very much. You see, what has happened in the last 5-6 years? For me, I don't want to sit down here and start speaking about the respective agricultural revolutions that have been brought about. You talk about Green Revolution, you talk about Operation Feed the Nation, you talk about, every government comes with its own mantra. A lot of mantras speak. And instead of them addressing the issues, they never do. All they do is they come and speak to the issues and throw money at it. There are women farmer cooperatives doing very well. And they're doing very, very well in their own fiefdoms. All we need to do is to bring them in. Inclusion, inclusivity. And I think the office of the vice president is doing that there's a lady in that office who I think is chaperoning that. And you see, what I think we must do is to make sure that we have a sequence, a proper sequence. There's a problem of sequencing in our activities here and in our policies. And I've always spoken to that. We need to sequence properly. We announce a policy and we don't sequence post the announcement. We're never ready for what to do post that. Look at what I was speaking to earlier. I don't know whether we might be speaking to maybe for example, wheat, for example. Maybe at some point I want to use that to speak to other issues. Wheat, for example, is a temperate crop. Nigeria consumes around about between 5.5 to 6 million tons of wheat. We produce under 400,000. I'm being generous here. And the rest is imported. So our import bill on wheat is between $2.5 to $3 billion. That won't change overnight. You don't legislate production. You plan. And in planning, you bring varieties that can operate in our climate. And for me, I think that comes to that's where the organized private sector comes in, where we have trials in some countries, and those trials can be brought in to improve yield and effectiveness. Right now, as we speak, the likes of Jigawa and a few other states are doing very well in wheat, but for goodness sake, your consumption is between 4.5 and 5.5 million tons, and you produce only 400,000 tons. You haven't started. It has to be long drawn. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And we must stop throwing money at everything.
Are we on the track? Are we? I mean, it's a long-term thing, but are we on the track, on the right track, would you say?
You want to hear the truth from me? I will tell you we're not. We're not, because everything of ours, we play politics with it, and we need to stop that. Let us bring in the people who can do it. And you know what? For me, we should always have a dialogue most of the time, but half of the time we are in a monologue. Sometimes people are talking, organized private sector is talking to itself, government is talking to itself. There is no handshake. And when there's no handshake, you can't get anything done. But I'm one who believes that the current government, to be fair, have started well. But my problem with them in this area is sequencing. There must be cooperation and collaboration between Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Finance, okay? And we should have that handshake. But right now, I do not see that handshake. I mean, if you as a nation cannot even speak to the gap you have in agricultural value chains across the country, then there's a problem. You don't have strategic silos anywhere. If you don't have strategic silos anywhere, if something happens, God forbid, you have a crisis in your hands. Look at Ukraine. Ukraine is at war and has been at war. But as the point of Ukraine being at war, Ukraine is still producing wheat for the world. That is because there's a system that works, a system that is irrespective of any government that comes in. So we must do our policy sequencing properly. And that's where I agree with you that we need to involve the organized private sector. The organized private sector should ordinarily, on a quarterly basis or even bi-monthly basis, be conferring with government and telling them that this is what we should be doing.
All right.
In God I trust, every other thing is data. You can only plan for the people that you know.
All right.
So when we speak about food inflation being high, this being high and that being high, we know what the problems are. Let us address the issues.
All right,
in God I trust, every other thing is data.
All right, Mr. Adefeko, I really do wish, I want to do an open invitation to you, because I mean, I know that Olam is doing something about heat-resistant wheat, which is a major raw material for a lot of food that we do consume here in Nigeria, and a lot of it is being imported, and also the value chain. So I would like to do an open invitation to you to join us in the studio in a no distant time, Mr. Adefeko, so we can have a richer conversation. I wonder if you would say yes to this.
I never say no to you. I never say no to you.
All right.
So call me and I'll be there.
All right.
But in this festive season, let me enjoy the festive season.
All right, Mr. Adefeko, thank you so much. All right. We'll certainly reach out to you. Well, that's it for the food chain in Nigeria. Every day we keep talking about food security. How do we even achieve it? Being realistic. I mean, that's what I think we should do. So, I mean, let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. But I can tell you that the NGX is positive yesterday. Mr. Rwani told me that because I'm wearing red, it's going to drop today. I pray not. I'll give you the stock market report later. But let's meet at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. We'll do 55 minutes of business here on Channels Television. I hand you back to the Sunrise Daily team.